Welcome to today's conversation with Vasant, the driving force behind Mundhe Banni. In this interview, we explore the need to build stronger local ecosystems across Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 cities in Karnataka, and why language barrier has often remained an overlooked challenge in access to opportunities. We also discuss bridging gaps in knowledge, scale, capital, and how Mundhe Banni is positioning itself as a resource enabler for emerging communities. Along the way, we also get to know Vasant's journey and the vision shaping his initiatives.
Right. I think my brief introduction is I'm an engineer. I graduated in 2002
Mm-hmm.
and worked with the few big tech companies like Motorola, Cisco, and TCS for the first 13, 14 years of my life. At least 10 years I was at Cisco. And then I moved out to sort of explore something on the startup side. I built a digital publishing company called MyLang, and we with my partner, and we started in 2019. It was Canada's first digital publishing platform for literature books, and till then, there was no platform in Canada where people could access high quality books in ebooks or audiobooks format. And Kindle did support four or five Indian languages, but Kannada was not there in that. So me and my partner thought, why not build something on our own and do something here. And we built a ground up platform for that. And but like I was engaged with Kannada at least a decade before that also, in various capacities, in various projects around Kannada. And I was also a columnist for a few Kannada newspapers where my goal was I mean, the whole knowledge creation in the world is basically mostly happening in English. And when it comes to disseminating that into our languages, there's a huge gap. And that gap needs to be bridged by people who navigate both the worlds. And hence, I felt like, because I am exposed to the tech world and operate in the English space, and also have come from the Kannada space because I, studied in a Kannada medium school, and I grew up in a small town also. So I thought I'm kind of poised to do that. So I used to write about what's happening in the tech world, in the economic space, in various countries when it comes to modernizing their languages, and kind of bring that dimension into Kannada and kind of put that forth in front of the Kannada audience to sort of elevate the whole narrative around language, and how do you look at language in the era of globalization and technology revolution and things like that. And hence, because of that, I kind of also had some access to the publishers, the writers, the media in Kannada, and that kind of helped me sort of bridge or build our last startup, wherein I was able to talk to the publishers and kind of onboard them onto our platform. And in 2 years, we were able to build a platform where we had some of the finest writers and publishers from Kannada space, basically for the first time making their content available in the digital space, in ebooks and audiobooks format. So we grew that platform and got about 150K users, and onboard about 500 plus publishing partners, small, big, all of them together, independent publishers also. And eventually, with that, we were able to raise some seed investment from Zerodha. Sorry, I have a sore throat, so I'm speaking so slowly.
Yeah.
Also, okay. And yeah, we wanted to expand that into other Indian languages also. That's why we named that as my short abbreviation for my language. And then we went to other languages. We figured out some issues with the publishing space in Indian languages, where transcending the language barrier means you will have to know the language of the other side. Otherwise,
Correct.
it
Yeah.
becomes very difficult to establish trust. And especially literature being the IP, obviously they have deep distrust about anyone who is not aware of the language. And we figured that probably that is not the right way to expand into other Indian languages in our case. So we took a tech first approach and used some of our learnings from running the platform in Canada, and built a creator platform where authors and narrators in a language can come together, explore each other, use the tools provided on the app to kind of build immersive audio stories on the platform itself, and get some kind of a social validation and virality on the app. So, and then like we expanded that into other Indian languages like Tamil, Malayalam, Hindi, English, and Kannada, and had a very decent traction also. And then we saw several challenges when it comes to monetizing that, because obviously in India, people who are consuming content in Indian languages are also not, very rich or have the ability to spend a lot of, disposable income, right? And with that, we figured that probably we will have to pivot the whole product into some space where there is some disproportionate or disposable income to spend, and hence we pivoted this product into the first world countries, and started to build a product where we could leverage the Gen AI capabilities to turn a fiction book into an audiobook using AI, and we took that path. But for me, I mean, like having stayed here back in India, because I always wanted to do something around our languages and things like that. So I felt like I'm a little disoriented and a little moved too far away from that goal, and hence me and my partner had a word, and he is driving that journey now, the Mylang part, and I wanted to actually do something else, and that's when this trigger for Mundhe Banni came about. This question was always there on my mind, like I spoke to you last time also, which is why do we see a very few entrepreneurs or the big entrepreneurs from Karnataka when it comes to when you see the canvas at an India level, right? And I was thinking, what could be the reasons that there is so much of cultural resistance to entrepreneurship in Karnataka? Maybe in some pockets of Karnataka, like the Udupi and Mangalore belt, for various historic reasons, they could be a little ahead of all other districts in Karnataka. But when you put that, juxtapose that with the other entrepreneurs coming from northeast, northwest part of India, or the at an India level, there are very few basically. And even if there are entrepreneurs, they are not too big in my view. And I was just curious to see what geopolitical or social reasons are behind this, and went on a rabbit hole to find an answer for that. And I won't say that I have figured out the exact reasons for that, but I do see that cultural resistance is like a 200, 300-year phenomenon in here. Because Karnataka was also the home for several large dynasties in the history, at least for the last 2000 years. But post Vijayanagar Empire, I think we did not have a huge kingdom which is based out of Karnataka, which kind of also supported a huge mercantile community and all of that. And although we had the half of Karnataka being ruled by the Mysore kings for some time before independence, but they were under the mercy of British, and obviously, did not spend enough effort or resources to basically turn the agricultural communities or agrarian communities into mercantile community, which is something that I think happened in the coastal parts of Andhra and also some parts of Tamil Nadu during the British era. And the other point was British did not rule the Karnataka directly from a Kannada speaking place. So those were like a small
Got it.
portion of history which could have contributed to this cultural resistance to entrepreneurship. But I was just thinking, what is the way out to sort of change this? And I found that I think post liberalization, in the 1991, and after that, I think we have at least seen some level of success when it comes to the people from Karnataka turning into entrepreneurship. Like we've had the case of Infosys, or Air Deccan, or some cases of success there. And I felt like I think knowledge based economy is where there's enough chance for people to actually move from traditional jobs and businesses to embrace entrepreneurship and maybe build some kind of a non-linear big business, right? And the best way to I mean now the time of in at the time of AI disruption, what we are seeing right now. So this also becomes an imperative that we must actually bring a cultural shift in people and also basically prepare them and give them the kind of tools and resources and hand holding and whatever it could be to help them navigate and sort of embrace entrepreneurship so that a lot more entrepreneurs can come from Karnataka and eventually could create more jobs and wealth for the state and for our people, right? So in that lens, I felt like what we can do, I think we can start one work on the part of bringing a cultural shift, which is through storytelling. So that's why we started a podcast called Mundhe Banni. And Mundhe Banni, as you know, is like a very very colloquially used everyday type of a term. And we thought like let's try and bring the entrepreneurs from Karnataka, various parts of Karnataka who built small businesses to big businesses and on their journey of building big businesses and kind of cover their stories here in Kannada so that when you cover this in Kannada, it also becomes very, very culturally relatable because I will not say that there is no entrepreneurship literature or startup related literature available for people in Karnataka. There is abundant literature available in English, but when it comes to translating that into Kannada, also there are huge gaps. But nevertheless, some people have tried to bring some of the best-selling startup-related books into Kannada. But because they lack a cultural connect, where the protagonist or the key person or the storyteller, does not come from our cultural background, there's always this gap of thinking that this is actually not our story. This is somebody else's story, right? So for that to change, I always felt like I think we need to celebrate the entrepreneurs who come from our state. So let's try and figure that out and get them on our podcast and interview them in a way where the questions should be structured in a way where we draw two things out of every conversation. One, there's definite inspiration should that should actually pass on to the listeners that if this is possible for somebody who has built a company from Udupi or Hassan or Mysore or Hubli, I think it's possible for me too. So that's the inspiration angle we always kind of bring in the conversations. The second part is from their journey, try and bring out as many useful playbooks as possible for budding entrepreneurs so that they make less mistakes. It's like everybody will go through a journey of figuring out what to build, how to get your first 10 customers, how to raise funding, or how to go about GTM and all of that. The traditional things that we see in the startup world, right? But what if the same things, we kind of get all these guests to answer so that you kind of draw a playbook that these are the things that has worked for somebody and probably if I can do something around that or think around that, maybe I can reduce my mistakes and learning curve, improve my learning curve, and move on. So that's how the whole Mundhe Banni podcast started. But like I mentioned, uh, podcast is basically for cultural shift, bringing a cultural shift, that bringing some kind of a confidence to that to the audience that hey, this is possible for me too. But when somebody takes that first step and moves forward, obviously there are many other unknowns and questions in front of them as to how do they start and like if they are building something in deep tech hardware, let's say, and they want to know where do they do their 3D prototyping, for example. So they don't know where are the labs or where do you get some kind of a 3D printing machine, for example. And there are people who have already done that, and then they also want to help. So we need a community where we can bring these people together and kind of create a place where people could actually easily connect with each other, seek help, offer help, and all of that. So that's why we started several community-related initiatives like running webinars and running regular physical meetups and bringing out newsletters in Kannada and also running a WhatsApp forum for now, because I mean, we wanted to build something around a forum structure, but we thought let's first start with a channel where people are already there. So that's how our WhatsApp forum got started. We have around 2,000 plus members. Some of them run small businesses, some of them are students, many of them are working professionals wanting to start something on their own. Many are already on their journey of building a startup or small business. And that community is like basically where people ask for help, get help, and share useful resources, schemes, all of that. And also are like we are trying to build a community where uh, the, I mean, we have to be around. I mean, like entrepreneurship, in my view, is something where somebody who is on that journey should be surrounded by people who are also thinking similarly. So that makes it a
Yes,
lot
yes.
more easier for them to navigate the mental stress part also. So yeah, that's what we are doing so far. We have done some 10 webinars so far, and brought out some 4 newsletters monthly, once a month. And we have done 3 meetups, 2 at Bangalore and 1 at Hubli. uh, and 400 plus people participated in these meetups, and around 2,500 plus unique individuals participated in our webinar so far. And yeah, the podcast part, like I think cumulatively we have around 7 lakh views so far for the 13 episodes we have brought out.
Mhm.
And one running theme that I have observed is, like I mentioned, these podcasts had an intention to bring an element of confidence in the people. And what I see is many comments in our YouTube podcast. A common thread that runs is that people come and say that, hey, I never knew that this guy is from our state. Okay. I never knew that
That
this is
happens,
from,
yeah.
he's from Hassan. I never knew that Varun Maya can speak Kannada. Now, like the with that latest episode what we have
Mm.
brought out. So I think the moment they see that there's some entrepreneur who has made it big, and he's also connected to his roots and his cultural roots, his language, it kind of gives a very different level of confidence among people, and they think that this is possible for them too. Because what we have seen is in tier one cities, people grow up with a lot more privileges. Living in tier one city itself is a privilege in my view. So obviously the kind of exposure they get is quite different compared to somebody who may be equally talented or more talented than somebody living in tier one city, wanting to build something really important. And it could even have a lot of market possibilities also. But what they lack is they lack exposure, and they also lack confidence. They're thinking that, hey, I may not belong here because I do not speak the polished English that somebody else will speak, right? I think with our initiative, we have seen that a lot of people find that they can actually express themselves confidently and can move around. Just to give an example, last month in December, we had a meetup at Hubli, and a month later, I got a message from a student studying at Hubli. He said he's from Gadag, and he attended our meetup. And because the whole meetup and all the conversation happened in Kannada, he felt confident to actually message me and talk to me. And he said, I am actually trying to build a unique apparatus which can be plugged on to the rear axle of a heavy commercial vehicle. And in case of a brake failure, it will act and may basically slow down that vehicle and bring it to a halt in 10 to 12 seconds. So, and
Mhm.
I was like really surprised. This is like a really cool innovation, and it is coming from a small town like Gadag. And he said like he and his father both have spent some money to purchase an old Tata Ace, the pickup van, and modify that and put this apparatus and do the testing on their own, and have really made it work. Now they are looking to commercialize that. But what surprised me was like he's part of the Hubli College, where there's also an incubation center and all of that. But somehow he felt like because the whole program that we ran at their premises happened in Canada, and because like we had got Vinod Shankar from Java Capital and Nihal from Rain Matter Zerodha to run a VC panel discussion in Canada, where like we kind of unpacked the VC ecosystem in Canada, and then we also ran a branding session in Canada, where Zoho's ex-creative director Rafiq Aslam came. Rafiq is also from Marsikere, but he settled in Chennai. He flew from Chennai to Hubli to basically just attend this event. So all of that kind of gave him the confidence that he can actually approach me and also talk about what he's trying to build. Now we are trying to help him, and I mean I tried to connect him to a hardware founder to figure out if there is a way to basically increase his speed of building that prototype, and also trying to help him with respect to incorporating the company and all, right? That is the thing I think gives a meaning to what we are trying to do.
Yeah, very interesting. And just to stress a little bit more on, I think initially you mentioned it, each language can become a portal into a new world, right? And when
Correct.
Kannada, English, and Tamil, like each languages will have its own, but navigating between these worlds, right? So what I'm trying to say is, let's say if you have to teach someone about agentic AI or artificial intelligence, neural networks, like, these things, it becomes a little complicated. But if we see in the West, it's easier because they consume their everyday content in English, and we're seeing in
Right.
China that it's coming in Mandarin. The latest research,
Right.
they have
True.
that sense of strength where language isn't a barrier for them, and
Absolutely.
language is a
Absolutely.
true barrier in India, which we don't talk about a lot. Like you said. Maybe not in tier one, tier two people. Tier one people might be comfortable, but
Right.
it's something of a serious barrier that people don't talk about as much. But do
Absolutely.
you think, are you trying to get them to be comfortable with the language, or do you think the curiosity itself will build upon it after a while?
I think it's both in my view. I mean, first thing is people who have like crossed that language barrier, they need to come back to Kannada and get comfortable with interacting with these people and sharing their knowledge in Kannada and all of that. And we have seen that many of our podcast guests or many of our these SMEs who we talk to, sometimes they say, hey, if I come here and want to actually share my knowledge in Kannada, I don't know whether I'll be able to do it because I do not know the Kannada exact Kannada word for say VC, like, let's say, right? And I say, don't worry about all of that because some bit of English, like we don't say mobile phone as
Exactly.
Jangamavani or Duravani or
Yeah.
whatever, right? So don't worry about all those terminologies. Everybody knows some bit of English. It's
Hmm.
just that when you talk to somebody in Kannada, and like it immediately connects with them. So comfortably, like however you're speaking at your home in Kannada, right? So use the same language and go ahead and talk. So that's one part. And on the yeah, I think what was your question? I think missed out.
I think, like, in between these worlds, again,
Yeah.
navigating, is it actually complicated for them? And is it curiosity that actually gets them to, innovate? Or do you think once they're comfortable with the language and they're
I,
able to
I
build
think
on top of it their own?
curiosity is how like anybody will get interested in actually solving a problem, and
Okay.
but like the moment you see that there is a language barrier to express themselves, or there is a language barrier to get support and help, then
Mm-hmm.
like I think that innovation basically stops over there. So
Hmm.
curiosity can help you actually build an apparatus that can stop a vehicle with brake failure problem, right? But the confidence to basically take that forward and commercialize and seek help to basically, even like he said he did not know whom to approach for help, right? So then, and I felt like he felt confident to talk to me only because he said like the whole thing happened in Kannada, and immediately I felt like there's somebody I can talk to. And so I think language gives that confidence because the world over, I think communities are built around language because like which is like primitive thing in my view,
Okay.
right?
And
And in India,
yeah.
I think there are at least some people are talking about the need to bring all these worldly knowledge in Indian languages. For example, Zoho Sridhar Vembu is one such guy. He's like always talks about enabling Indian languages and the need to, I mean, need to not judge somebody by their English speaking skills and all. But I think we have a long way to go.
Yeah. And to talk a little bit more about agency, right? A lot of people believe that it cannot actually be taught, right?
Right.
Probably it can be inculcated, but what are you trying to instill? Is it a set of skills or a belief system early on that can actually guide them, propel them
I
ahead?
think you're right. Agency cannot be taught, definitely, right? But what I mean, like if let's say a person has agency to basically figure out figure out a solution for a problem, can go to any extent to basically sort that out and all. But if he wants to scale that into a big business, for example, so he definitely needs some support from outside, right? And that support requires them to actually express themselves very clearly and communicate. And that's where this language barrier is. And if we can actually enable them and make them help them to make those connections and help them in terms of expressing themselves and become a bridge of that whole conversation, I think a lot will change in my view.
Okay.
I mean, that is why I think this whole concept of Shark Tank, launching a show in Hindi, or Startup Singham starting in Tamil, and there's now I think a couple more shows in Hindi, around where Dr.
Mhm.
Velumani is also part of. I saw something on
Mhm.
LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and I believe all of them are actually tapping, a problem where people know what to do, how to solve a problem, and all of that. But what they lack is the kind of exposure to the network of investors or the network of SMEs and all of that. I think that part is getting solved because we are now basically started to appreciate the value of language in all these.
When we talk about businesses, right? The problem with that is when we're dealing with it online, we tend to give generic advice. It might not
Right.
apply to everyone the same way.
Very true.
So yeah, how do you do you think it's just about people take their decisions, and obviously they are responsible for their decisions,
I think
but
ultimately people are the best judges of their own destiny and what they need to do in their life. So what we can do is we can just be an enabler where we provide if they require some help, we kind of try to provide that. If they require some mentors, we kind of try and connect them to some mentors who can help with their. Then if they require some tools or technology that can sort of help in their journey, we kind of see if we can actually provide that also. For example, somebody wanted to get a good feedback of their pitch deck. And what I did is I actually, basically ideated the whole thing on Gemini and kind of gave him a very detailed prompt that he can use to basically
Mhm.
get a very qualitative feedback for his pitch using Gemini. And that
Mhm.
kind of helped him because after that, he really, really came up with a really good pitch, and that helped him have some conversation with the VC later. So that's an acknowledgement I got also from one of the founders.
Okay. In we've seen that in Tamil Nadu there is a hedging between cities, right? Chennai isn't. It is a pretty main city, but also you see in Coimbatore, and
Yeah,
it is more distributed, the wealth and
right.
ideas and everything. But in
Yeah.
Karnataka, the problem has been it has been concentrated in Bangalore, all of it, right? So,
So
but how do you think we can crack this? To say I can build this
I
from a
think
tier two city itself.
I think like when somebody asks why does Mundhe Banni exist, one of the two three things that we keep telling is in one, we have a cultural resistance to entrepreneurship. Two, all of our entrepreneurial ecosystem is basically Bangalore centric with very little push for tier two and tier three towns. Although things are changing there. And the
Yeah.
third is there's a knowledge gap which exists because nothing exists in Kannada, right?
Yeah.
Now, coming back to your question of, are we too Bangalore centric? Definitely yes. And things are changing right now. At least the Karnataka governments, irrespective of any political party in power, there's a consistent effort to
Beyond
basically
Bangalore,
push
yeah.
only Bangalore and Mysore as the next tech hubs or startup hubs. I think that is also showing some results because we see a lot of GCCs being set up in Bangalore right now. Hubli is also drawing a lot of attention right now. What was the exact question? I mean, I kind of
Again, how do you think Mundhe Banni is going to play a role in enabling tier two, tier three? I
yeah,
know, I mean, these meetups can be a place where you can enable people, but also,
right.
is there a way you're connecting tier one VCs from tier one to, founders from
So
tier three?
so far, that's what we are doing. In the sense, for example, when
To
we
use this
spoke to
as a
the
bridge is what I actually meant. To use the tier one
yeah,
knowledge as a bridge
correct,
between
correct.
the two. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like when we got an inquiry from Hubli, where there's an university called KLE Technological University, under which there's a incubation center also called CTIE. And when they approached us, our first question was, you yourself have a incubation center within the university premises and have the some of the finest lab setups also. So what do you need expect from Mundhe Banni? And then their response was, although our people here are into building several types of startups, some are into deep tech, some are into D2C and all sorts and agri tech related startups, several of them. Um, but what they lack is they do not have any exposure to how the VC ecosystem works. So they asked me whether we can bring some, really high quality VCs from Bangalore to come over to Hubli and do this in Kannada. And so that's what we did eventually. And then the second point was several of them actually have trouble explaining what they are trying to build, and that actually leads to poor branding for their initiatives. So they asked me whether we can actually arrange a branding related session. So that's how we generally work with our tier two, tier three partners right now. I mean, like we've just had one. We are now, I think, having a meetup in end of March at Kalburgi, where the Kalburgi, the Kalyana Karnataka Chamber of Commerce and the PDA College of Engineering are actually coming together to get us there. And we are also working with them. Like we have asked them, what are the types of startups operate from this region? What do they do? And what do they really need? So it's like whatever their founders think that is a problem for that region and the founders in that region, we try and bring the kind of SMEs to sort of come and talk to them and help them in that sense. So we, as you said, we are trying to become that bridge where we provide the value what those founders are expecting right there to solve whatever trying to, they have, whatever problem they may have at that time.
What books can we read from Karnataka to learn about, the historical empires, be it like history of Karnataka a little bit better?
To introduce the history of Karnataka, I think there's a historian called Suryanath Kamath, right?
Okay.
And he has written a wonderful series of books around the history of Karnataka. This is a very specific title. Just give me a moment. I'll just find the exact title.
Okay.
Suryanath Kamath, Karnataka history. Uh, yeah, a concise history of Karnataka.
Okay.
Okay, that's
This
a
is in
book
English
by
only, right? Okay. Okay.
It's in English, Surinath Kamath. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
wonderful book to basically get a quick glimpse of Karnataka of the last 200 years. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
2000 years, say.
Mm-hmm.
And in Kannada, there are several books. At least I mean, like there's also a Kannada version of this book available called Karnataka the Sankshipta Itihasa.
Okay.
And there's also another book by Aluru Venkatrayaru by the name Karnataka Gata Vaibhava, where which means it's also about a lot of things about the history of Karnataka.
Okay.
And there's one more very interesting book around the unification of Karnataka called Karnataka Ekikarana Itihasa, H.S. Gopal Ranges.
Okay.
So those are really interesting books one can refer to just as
Oh,
a beginner.
okay. Yeah. And talking about literature, right? Here,
Right.
have you guys thought about creating literature for building a startup in Kannada? Like we said, VC doesn't have to be a literal translation, but using these words itself can be an advantage, right? And managing a company, right? Like setting up a cap table, all of these like very minute details. Like any literature around this, any work going on?
One moment.
Yeah.
I'll suggest one book in Kannada. I'm a little poor at remembering things when it comes to titles. Uh, there's a book by Gururaj Deshpande.
Okay.
Uh, it's called as. It's a very short book around startups.
Okay.
No, I think I'll just share that offline with you.
Sure,
Okay.
sure. I'll
But
just leave it in the comment.
there's a book that we brought out from Mylang when I was with
Mm-hmm.
Mylang
Mm-hmm.
called Startup New Kattabahudu.
Mm-hmm.
And it's by an author called Satesh Pelluru. He was a VP at Tejas Networks. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
And he has written it very nicely, introducing all the jargons of the startup world and how do you really put out a team, how do you raise money, how do you basically pitch to a VC, and how do the angel investors or VCs assess your pitch and all of that. It's covered very nicely in Kannada, but there's very little literature to. We want to create a sort of an explainer series in Kannada this year,
Mm-hmm.
where we kind of take all these questions and kind of create very short videos in Kannada.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody comes to you and say asks whether to start an LLP or a private limited company.
Mm-hmm.
Now give them the difference between what is an LLP or what is a private limited company, and what does it mean to start one. And like if somebody comes and asks like what is an angel investor investment, or what is a VC investment, what is a pre-seed, seed, or Series A, Series B, explain those terminologies in a way where they could easily grasp that whole thing, so that they are prepared when they really actually want to go and seek
Go ahead
funding
and
from
start
the.
as well. Okay, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, I think that's about it, Vasant. Thank you
Okay.
for doing this interview today. Hope we'll catch up soon in one of the meetups.